Frieren is an old elf mage who manages to dominate every field of a battle. But when it comes to love, she's a laughable failure. She loses everyone she loves since the age gap of an elf is far superior to humans. After she fails in the love department, she decides to drop her love arc and move on to become a great teacher. The hero's party arrives from the once considered impossible mission: defeat the Demon King. As they enter the city, everyone welcomes them with a bang, and the party consists of Himmel the Hero, Eisen the Warrior, Heiter the Priest, and Frieren the Mage, who visits the king's palace. The Elden Lord blesses them, and the Age of Peace begins. Everyone celebrates this moment of prosperity, including the hero's party. They move outside of the crowd, where they realize how their journey has reached an end after 10 years, and remember all of the goofy shit that happens in it. They continue to reminisce until they see the 1.5-century meteor shower, and the night passes. In the morning, Frieren leaves for the woods as she plans to travel for the next 50 to 100 years, since a century is such a small inch gap in the life of elves. Years pass, and Frieren remembers an item called Shadow Dragon Horn, which she requires for her spells as a mage. She tries to find it in a local shop but fails. However, she returns to the city as the time for the meteor shower is set to arrive again. She goes to the city and meets with Himmel, who has aged a lot, and he gives Frieren the item she wants. She goes outside and gives the item to her bird to fly high up in the sky. She returns to Himmel, and both of them call out the other members of the party to enjoy their time after 50 years. They're glad to see Frieren after a long time, and they move out to the mountains after a day's adventure to gaze upon the legendary rarity meteor shower. However, after all the fun and games, Himmel passes away the next day, and then everyone buries the hero. Frieren becomes aware of her feelings and cries for him. She takes his ring as a memorial and bids farewell to both Eisen and Heiter. The boomer elf makes a return after 20 years of Himmel's death to meet Heiter. She meets a purple-haired miner in the woods who takes her to Heiter. Heiter says that her name is Fern. She was a war orphan, and asks Frieren to take her as an apprentice. However, she denies, and Heiter asks for another favor, which is for Frieren to learn immortality, since he is now afraid to sleep forever. Until she deciphers the spell, he asks her to teach Fern magic, and she agrees. The centuries-old elf goes out and fails to find Fern's mana, since the kid's control of her mana is extraordinary. Fern's magical output is too intense for her age, and since she likes magic, Frieren finds her to be interesting and decides to become her magic teacher. Frieren and Fern sit near the waterfall, where she interviews the miner about her past experiences with magic, and she tells her how to control it. For the next few years, Frieren starts to live with Heiter and Fern, and as she tries to decipher the immortality spells, she teaches Fern to control and maximize the outputs of her spells. They eat, sleep, and bathe together and act as a proper family. After 4 years of their epic jam-packed family events, Frieren tells Heiter how hard-working Fern is, but she should not do it considering her small age. But suddenly, when she tries to ask something, Heiter collapses, and Frieren slams him in the bed. He wakes up, and Frieren tells him she will decipher the spell soon. She goes outside to meet Fern and tell her about Heiter, but she considers magic over someone's life. Heiter passes away, and thanks to Frieren, Fern pays off her debt to him, and they decide to go on the adventure together. The Boomer and Gen Z lift off big balls together to collect the strangest magic known to man and visit a town to meet a herbalist. The herbalist shows them around the town, and they arrive at Himmel's statue, which was made in honor of him when he saved everyone in the town from a giant monster. The herbalist wants some flowers near the statue, and Frieren becomes selfish as she decides to grow Himmel's favorite. But she does not know what they look like. The herbalist shows her blue moon weed, while Fern goofs around seed-eating rats. But Frieren asks her to leave them in the wood. Although the flowers have not been around for decades, she goes to new heights to find and learn about the magic that can grow the flowers. Even after 6 months, they fail to find the flowers. Fern tries to ask the herbalist about Frieren, but she asks Fern to convey her feelings directly to Frieren. Fern talks out with Frieren, and she agrees to end her search soon. and nobody knows soon in Elf's life. They see a peculiar rat, and they follow its blue tracks. Fern asks why she likes to collect spells, and she tells her how Himmel complimented every spell she collected. They reach a mill where they see a blue petal, and the mill is all creamed up with the blue moon weeds. They return to the herbalist and finally plant down the blue moon weeds on her beloved who passed away too early. 27 years pass after the minority of a hero, Himmel's death. Frieren and Fern are outside to gather rations for the home, but Frieren decides to push everything on Fern, and she dips away as she makes a suspicious face. However, Fern knows when Frieren acts sussy, since the granny elf makes a weird-looking face, and she decides to follow her to see what she's going to cook. Fern sees Frieren buy a pendant or some shit, and then she moves on to buy a dessert. Fern feels all jelly to see Frieren talk about dessert, but after she follows her for a few more minutes, they reach an adventure guild where all the ugly bastards sit together. But Frieren indeed asks them about dessert shops. Fern moves away to buy the rations which Frieren tasked her with, and returns to their inn. Frieren asks her if she wants to eat dessert and go to a restaurant's top floor. Fern asks for the dessert that Frieren really likes, which reminds her of the old hero whom she failed to love, and Frieren brings out the thing she bought, a silver hair ornament for Fern's birthday. The next day, Fern wears the hair ornament, and they move out for their next so-called daily adventure. Frieren continues to train Fern with the help of killing magic, which is such a nice name for a spell. She uses this magic on the kid to strengthen her defense, as she's determined to make something out of Fern. However, Fern desperately fails to catch up with the granny, and they continue to walk in the forest for a good minute. They reach a village where Frieren greets the head, and she asks for Qual, a demon sealed by Himmel 80 years ago. Since the seal is weak, Frieren is here to dispel it and take permanent care of Qual. Qual was a demon who made a spell called Zoltrak, and he killed more than 70% of the mages in the land. The next day, the miner and the granny clean sweep Qual's seal, and Qual greets them and suddenly attacks with Zoltrak, but Fern blocks it. He feels amused to see someone block Zoltrak, but since 80 years is quite a handful of times in human life, people learned his magic while he was sleeping as a rock and learned the defensive measures. In the next minute, Qual finds the weakness of Fern's defense and spams the shit out of his magic. But she continues to block it until Frieren yeets her in the air and shoots Zoltrak in his face to kill him. They return to the village and celebrate Qual's defeat, and Frieren remembers that village leader is the kid who swooped her skirt. They take the blessings and return home as they have saved the day. 27 years pass after Himmel's death, and Frieren, along with Fern, arrive at a village to help clean up a beach, and look how the mighty have fallen. The owner of the village gives them a grimoire, but even though it's fake, Frieren decides to help the ones in need. 3 months pass, winter arrives, and Fern buys rations for her and Frieren. But Granny Elf sure loves to sleep. Fern drags Frieren like a baby, since she's a fast sleeper, and they continue to clean the beach. She explains how she used to oversleep at the hero's party, and Heiter used to give her a pack-watch bozo lecture. They meet with the owner and tell him how much of the rubble from the beach is left. The cycle continues for the next few months, and after it's all munched up, the owner invites them both to the New Year's festival. Fern loses her shit when Frieren agrees, as the responsibility of waking her up will be up to her. Before she sleeps, Frieren remembers about the time when Himmel asked her out for the festival, but she denied it. The next morning, Frieren breaks her sleep-edging streak, and she easily wakes up to see the sunset, and she and Fern enjoy a moment of peace after a long time. When Himmel was alive, the party had a debate on whether heaven exists. Everyone had different beliefs, but they did not bat an eye. Now, 30 years later, Frieren reunites with Eisen, and she asks if he needs any help. Eisen takes her to Vol Basin, where, according to Heiter, the notes of the legendary mage Flam are hidden somewhere. They decide to search for a big ah tree to find the notes, and the search takes up to 2 days until Fern locates a large tree on some ruins. They reach the tree, and Frieren remembers her master, Flam, told her to know people better, and she blasts away the opening of the tree to see her grimoire. As she reads it, she learns about a place called Ariol, also known as Heaven for humans. Eisen asks Frieren to go to Ariol, which resides in the city of End, where the Demon King lives now. As they return, Eisen asks how good of a master Frieren is, but she says she's quite a strange woman in nature. But she's nice when it comes to treatment and respect. After they reach home, they bid farewell to Eisen and move on their mere 10-year adventure to End so Frieren can talk with her dead lover. Will Frieren be able to survive this seemingly endless journey? Comment ELF below and let us know. Subscribe to the channel for more content.